Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I don't know why I am
Okay.
so big. Okay, good. So welcome everybody to the 17th session of our Faith and Calm series. And for all of you have been here before, but I just want to say that we're following the regular routine, which is that Haskell Schumann is going to speak first for about 25 minutes, and then I'm going to speak for about 25 minutes. And then we're going to have recorder off time. And if anybody has a good song they want to sing, or if they have questions that they want to ask, or they just want to schmooze, that's our time for that. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming. So happy to see all of you. And Haskell Schumann, why don't you begin?
Okay. All right. Number 17. Number 17's topic, the subtitle is about having an impact on the world. And I think this is all connected to faith and calm, because many times we just feel, part of the modern age, the quote scientific viewpoint on the world just views you as an infinite speck in the universe. Anybody saw The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? It says, you're just this dot in this huge, vast universe and so forth. And that was, people feel like they're insignificant and they don't matter. And that causes a lot of problems, because then you don't care what you do and your actions don't really feel that they have an impact in this world. And that can lead to a severe sense of loss of malchus, self-dignity, self-awareness, and a feeling that that you matter, because it doesn't matter what you're given in this world. You can be smart, you can be intelligent, you can be pretty, you can be healthy, but if you don't think you matter at all, it's like a cup that's full of water, a bucket that doesn't have any holes in it, that doesn't, it doesn't matter what you're given, because you just don't feel that you're worth anything. Oh, that reminded me of a story. Yeah. Did you ever hear the story? It's a very good metaphor for a lot of different things. There once was this Chinese lady, and every day she used to carry these 2 buckets of water on her shoulders, and she used to travel down a path and bring the water from the well to the we have an interrupter here. Okay. Don't do that. It really interrupts me. So she would carry this water every day along the path, and she had 2 buckets, one on the left side and one on the right side. And she'd walk every day. She'd go to the well, and then she'd bring the water back to the house. And one of the buckets had a hole in it. And this bucket, this is obviously not quite, I don't know if it's a realistic story, but the bucket started to complain, saying, what was it the worth of me? Every day you fill me up, and by the time I get back to the house, I'm empty, I feel such like a schmata, empty, useless, creator. I don't feel any value in what I'm doing. And the lady was smart, and she said, wait, next time we'll see. And so when she walked the next time, she would talk to the bucket, and she said, do you see the side of the road, the left side where you are? Do you see all the flowers along the path that are growing, and there's nothing growing on the other side? That's because they planted flowers along that whole path. And so you are doing something. You're helping all those flowers grow that wouldn't normally grow. So you're actually accomplishing a tremendous amount, because I wanted a bucket with holes in it so I could water the path along the way. You created this beautiful path of flowers. And I think that's, it's a good story for a lot of things in our lives. So we don't see and we don't feel and we don't hear how much we're actually accomplishing, and we don't open up our eyes. I heard one today also similar to that. Rabbi Simon Jacobson, I heard him just like 5 minutes ago. It's amazing how you just get these stories right when you need them. So he said, he got a letter from somebody who listens to his daily program. And on that daily program, this guy listens every day, and he's in obstetrics, right, in a hospital in New York Hospital, which overlooks FDR Drive, and he works on the 8th floor. So he has a nice view of the window of the ocean, of the river, and that would be the Hudson and FDR Drive, and Yeah, no, that's the East River.
East River.
East River, FDR Drive, and I'm trying to get my geography right. And he sees all this traffic and beeping and cars every day, and he was thinking, here I am, I'm delivering babies, and sometimes there's nobody here but the mother and maybe the nurse and myself. And there's a miracle happening. A new life is coming into this world, and it happens over and over and over again. And, compare what is happening inside here to what's happening out in the street. Everybody's excited, and, they're driving here, there, they're busy with this and that and so forth like that. And he stopped and thinking, he says, I really don't realize, and because it happens every day, we really don't see this as a miracle. We just think it is part of nature. But really, there's something amazing coming in every single day. A baby comes into the world, and it's a new being, a new creature, a new human being. So, we just don't sense what we're doing. Okay, so here comes the main part of the story that I wanted to say today. And that is, last week in the Parsha of the Chumash, Patos Masai, we read about the 42 steps that the Jews traveled through in the wilderness. And we get to one of them, and it mentions that place, Aaron died. And he was buried there in the wilderness, and he didn't go into the land of Israel. And the odd thing is that we already heard about the story of Aaron dying earlier, 2 parshas before, and nobody else is mentioned in all the journeys, all the steps that they died at a particular place. And not only that, but they don't mention that the fact it actually gives the date of Aaron's passing away. It gives his yard site. Nobody in all of Chumash, all of Tanakh, has ever mentioned their yard site. It's a very interesting thing. We don't know the date of Abraham's yard site. We don't know the date of Miriam's yard site. We don't know the date of Moshe's yard site. Well, we know it from the Gemara, but it doesn't say it directly. The Gemara has to figure it out. We don't know the date of anybody in, Esther, any Mordechai. Nobody, is not mentioned at all. The only person in all of Tanakh, the 24 books of the Bible, is Aaron. And it says he passed away on the first day of Av, which is in tomorrow evening, the first day of Av. So his yard site is coming up tomorrow evening. And why is it so important to know his yard site? Well, we all want to know people's yard site, but what's so important about that? Okay, so that's the first thought in your head. Why is it then, and why is it mentioned? So there's a famous commentator. He's called the Sfas Emes. And he's an interesting person. He was the second leader of the Ger Hasidim. The very first one was called the Cheduchi Arim, his grandfather. And then he took over directly afterwards because the Cheduchi Arim, all his kids died in his lifetime. So the next person to take over was his grandson. Sort of diverging and telling a cute story on the side. It's a cute story, so I'll tell it anyway. He became a Rebbe when he was very young. So there were many older Hasidim that were Ger Hasidim for many years. They had long beards and white beards and stuff like that. And they were wondering, how can we really show allegiance to this young rabbi, who barely has a beard, and now he's like the chief rabbi. He's the Rebbe of all of the Hasidim. They didn't say anything, but he sensed it. So at one of his early talks, when he was talking, he gave an indirect answer to this question. He said, once there was a mountain that was very tall, and many mountain climbers tried to climb this mountain. And nobody was able to do it. And finally, one guy trained for years and years, several years. He tried and he failed. He tried and he failed. And he finally figured out a way up. And he made it to the top of the mountain. And when he got to the top of the mountain, he said, wow, what an amazing place. I'm so glad I got up here. It's such a vista. You can see the valleys. You can see there's a field here. It's green. It's beautiful. It's quiet, And then he sees a little boy running around with some sheep. And he goes, what? What? He says, nobody got up here before. Nobody was able to climb. I tried years to get up to this level. And how did you get here? And the little boy says, what do you mean, how did I get here? I was born here. I was born here. It was the answer. It was also the answer for the Hasidim, because some people are just born in with the capabilities and abilities of memory and so forth, and others have to struggle to get up there, and there's no crime for that. But other people just get there. So anyway, back to the main story. So what did he say? He was trying to explain the story with Aaron, and why is his yard site the only yard site mentioned in all of the Chumash and all of the books of the prophets and Ketuvim and so forth. And he said this story. There once was a very nice religious Jewish man, and he had a custom to always visit people when they were sitting Shiva. And when he would go, he wanted them to feel like he was part of the Shiva. And so and one of the things that when you're sitting Shiva during Avelus, do it on Tisha B'Av too, is you don't wear shoes. You don't wear leather shoes. You don't wear whatever. So he would do the same thing, which is absolutely not required. Just visiting somebody, you're just supposed to, show some sympathy with the other person. You're just supposed to sit there and talk. And, by the way, don't say anything stupid. Some people say the stupidest things at Shiva. They say like, oh, he must be in a better place. Or, oh, you must be so relieved after that. It's like the worst thing to say. All you really want to do is bond with the person and say, you know what, I'm here with you and I'm sharing the feeling with you. That's basically all you can do. And you let the person who is sitting Shiva, let them do the talking. And they'll just be so pleased that all their friends are coming and they're connecting with them. And that's really all you can do. It's a biggie. Anyway, so he would always take off his shoes just to make sure that he felt connected with the other person. And he would come home. And anyway, he did that for years and years and years. And the Sfas Emes finishes and says, and the day that this guy passed away after many years was Tisha B'Av. And on Tisha B'Av, as I just said, which comes up in 10 days, like 10 days, is everybody doesn't wear shoes. So it's very interesting, He didn't wear shoes for all these people. And the response was that everybody, in effect, didn't wear shoes on the day that he passed away. They weren't planning to not wear shoes, but it was just, it just worked out that way. How does that answer the question? So to answer the question, we need another little story to help explain this idea. And this story I heard this week from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, and he was talking about his grandmother. His grandmother grew up in Soviet Georgia. I don't know if you know the area. So the real Georgia is in Soviet Union. It's near the Caucasus Mountains in the Black Sea. And she grew up before World War II. And then the World War II happened, and the Nazis never could get there because the mountains sort of blocked off that area. But it was terrible for the Jews there. And she managed to escape with her family and her daughter, Rabbi Jacobson's mother, sometime right after World War II. There were various schemes to get people out, and took many places. They went to Germany, and they were in Poking, Germany, and they were in France for a while. And eventually she ended up in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. And she rebuilt her life, there with her family, her husband and her daughter. But she had tremendous melancholy, depression. In those days, they didn't have Lozak, and they didn't have psychological counseling, like we have therapists here on the line and stuff like that. So people just suffered, they were depressed. And they went through life, thinking that life was, terrible. And it was terrible. You went through Stalin and you went through Hitler. You went through a lot. And you saw a lot, and you may have wondered what's the point of life. So she went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe in those days, must have been back in the early 50s, and she told her problem. And he gave her an advice, and he told her, you know what you should do? You should go to weddings, and you should dance at the weddings. Make sure you go to weddings and you dance at them. And that became her thing. Her name was Tybal, I guess Jacobson. I don't know, it could have been Jacobson. But anyway, Tybal stands for Luba Alta Tova, which means a beautiful old bird. That was her name. And whenever she came to the wedding, they said, wow, Tybal's coming. And she became a fantastic dancer. And she lived till 93 years old, probably because she did so much dancing. It was good physically for her, and it was good psychologically for her. And she really got into this whole dancing business. And she didn't really go to family weddings or even ones that she was invited to. She would come even when she wasn't invited. She would come. There were always weddings in Crown Heights and things going on, and there's a place. And she would arrive at the weddings. Especially, she would come for balachuvas, people because sometimes the parents of the balachuvas, they weren't even there. So she would come and she would dance and dance and dance and dance. And she was known, as this person who came to dancing. So fast forward a little bit, Rabbi Jacobson continues, and he says 12 years ago, he was teaching a class, and his uncle was marrying off his son, his first cousin of Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. And it was in one of the ballrooms in Crown Heights, and he couldn't come at the time that it started. He figured he would come afterwards. He came there about midnight. And when he got at the wedding, he figured he would get a few of the dances in, and say l'chaim with everybody and, celebrate a little bit. He got there and he noticed something very strange. His mother wasn't there. His grandmother was certainly not there. She was not so well. And nor were his uncles and his aunts or his cousins. His whole family was basically missing. There was only the father of the groom and the groom. And he thought it was bizarre because usually the weddings go on long. Anyway, he danced together with the chassan and celebrated. And the next day he found out what happened. Sometime during the middle of the wedding, his mother got a phone call. His grandmother was sick for a few years. She had a helper live in, and the situation turned very serious that night of the wedding. And she was taken to Methodist Hospital, which is in Park Slope nearby Crown Heights. And she was put in ICU. So Rabbi Jacobson's mother, that's the daughter of Tybal, she sneaks out of the wedding, and she tells a few of her other brothers and sisters, and they also sneak out of the wedding. And also then some of the kids of the grandchildren sneak out of the wedding. And by the time they all got to the hospital, there were like 40 of them all there at the ICU. And the nurses and the staff were like looking at this. What is going on here? Because, okay, you have a few people that come, that she's passing away, she's sick, but 40 people all in wedding gowns in an ICU? It looked very strange, wedding gowns and kapatas and their fancy coats. It was just like very strange. And not only that, but they came from a wedding, so they were fairly labedik. So some of the uncles started singing wedding songs. So they were all singing these wedding songs there in the ICU, in the wedding dresses, and they're all singing and dancing. And in the middle of all of this, the grandmother's soul went back up to heaven, and God embraced her, and she passed away. So the next day, Rabbi Y.Y. was thinking to myself and thinking, this is very, very interesting. My grandmother would always spend so much time, bringing joy and happiness to all these couples at their weddings. And how did she pass away? In a wedding celebration. She also married, and she had this wedding. This everybody was dressed up, everybody was celebrating, and everybody So what does this prove? What is this bringing us here? That every act that we do engenders a certain energy in the world. Whenever we do something good, it brings a certain life, a little energy. Somehow it does something, it changes the world. We may not see it directly, it may not happen immediately, what we've done having that effect. But it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and it builds up, and it creates a positive energy. And sometime it comes out. Aaron was known as the lover of Jewish people. He couldn't stand when people got into fights, family fights or anything. He was always the negotiator, the person who brought peace. And that's why everybody mourned him when he passed away. Not only it doesn't say that about anybody else. Moshe said the men cried, but with Aaron it said the women and the children and everybody, because he had mended families, he made everybody together. And so Aaron is the one that when he passed away, everybody felt, a loss to him. So everybody connected. So his love went to every single Jew, and every Jew had a response back to him that they felt his loss. And that's why his yard side, that's what the Sfas Emes is saying. At his yard side, everybody felt the loss directly. Now that answers half of the question. Let me try and finish the other part of the question, which is why specifically last week's Parsha. So this comes from the Rebbe in his Rishimos. He says that God never brings a negative thing to the world or to a person or a challenge to a person without first establishing the healing, the cure. He gives you the tools to overcome before the thing happens to you. So if something happens, something sad, something depressing, or something else, the healing is already there already beforehand, because it's never there just to crush a person. You have to have the ability to overcome it afterwards. So what is this? How does this work out? So there's another story, and it goes as follows. It also came from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. He said that he recently got a message from somebody he knows in Israel. His name, I think, was Meir Ashkenazi. His father was Motel Ashkenazi, the chief rabbi of Kfar Chabad. And this rabbi of Kfar Chabad, 35 years ago, there was a story that started 35 years ago. 35 years ago, he was sitting in his house late at night, and a girl who lives in Kfar Chabad knocked on the door and came in. And she brought a friend. I don't know from where. I don't know, maybe not religious. I don't know. It's some girl. And they said, we have a serious problem. We want the rabbi to help us with this. My friend, the girl who came there, had a lot of problems in her family, and she made a lot of mistakes, and now she's pregnant. And she's extremely worried about her father and the whole relationship with her father. And she feels that she hasn't told her father about this, and he's going to be so she decided that she was going to have an abortion rather than have to put her father through all of this, herself through it, whatever. And Rabbi Ashkenazi hears this, and he asks her, he says, listen, it's Arab Sukkot right now. It's the day before Sukkot. You're not going to have it during the Yom Tov. And you're not going to. Can you push it off till after Chol Hamoed, after the Sukkot is all over? I mean, it's a few days. Nobody will see, and I will come up. I will personally get involved, and I'll help find a solution for this. So she agrees to push off the abortion, and Rabbi Ashkenazi starts calling, and his wife starts calling, and they're calling all sorts of people. They decide that the best thing for her is to probably get out of the country for a few months, go to Europe. And so they call all the Chabad shluchim in Europe. And they have no success. A couple of days pass by, it's Chol Hamoed Sukkos, and Rabbi Ashkenazi sees the chief rabbi of Lyon from France, and he sees him there, surprise, surprise. He's, what's you doing in Israel? And can you help me? I have this problem, and you would be perfect for it. You're in France. He explains the problem, and the rabbi says, sure, I'll help. Wish you can stay with us. And so Rabbi Ashkenazi has no money. He goes around, he collects money for her, for tickets. He gives $50 of his own that he doesn't have, and they send her off to France. The months go by. The pregnancy advances. She has a very difficult pregnancy, a lot of issues. And but she gives birth in the end to a very healthy baby girl, smart, beautiful, charming, just wonderful girl. And there happens to be a family there in France, doesn't have kids, and they agree to adopt her. And they're well-to-do, and they pay for airline tickets every once in a while for the birth mother to come to France to see her child. So, and the girl grows up. This is 35 years ago. And when she turns 19, she comes to Israel, and she makes a point of visiting the Ashkenazis and thanking them for saving her life, literally, because she would not be in this world if they hadn't intervened. The clock goes forward. Now it's 35 years later. There's a coronavirus. COVID is all over the world. Or they say in Israel, Corona. Corona is all over the world, Corona. Rabbi Ashkenazi passed away about 2 years ago or so. But he has another son that lives in Montreal. And this Rabbi Ashkenazi happened to, most of the shuls in Montreal were closed. And he happened to be davening at a small Sephardi shul nearby his house. He goes into there, And somebody comes over to them and asks him what his name is. And he says, Ashkenazi. And he says, are you related to the rabbi in Israel, Kfar Chabad? And he says, yes. It's my father. And he says, really? He says, guess what? My wife was that girl that he saved her life, 35 years ago. And she's pregnant. She just gave birth to a baby boy. We would love to honor you, well, your father, but we'll do it through you, if you will be the sandik at this boy's bris. So he gets tested for corona, and he's allowed to go in, and there's just the sandik and the moel and the mother and the father. And there he is. And you would have thought, that this energy that was originally triggered, this little event, but it goes around, it cycles around. And he finds himself that he helped save the girl. And now he's helping bring the girl's child into this world as at the bris. This is part of the issue. The big reason why we're going into the 9 days of mourning for the temple is because Jews couldn't get along with each other. There was, for whatever reasons, we always get into these fights and so forth like that. Aaron was the epitome of somebody who just was the opposite. Everything he did was to try and bring healing and unity among Jews. And therefore, it's very appropriate that his energy is celebrated tomorrow night with his yahrzeit, because on the day of the yahrzeit, they say the mazel, the spiritual energy of the person shines out very strong. There is a certain spiritual energy, all the total of their life, just as we saw earlier with the passing away of the Rabbi Jacobson's grandmother and so forth. That spiritual energy is the strongest because it's the culmination. All the years before are all brought to a peak at the end, and it's all revealed what the whole purpose of that person's life was. So the purpose of the person's life was to dance at weddings. The purpose of Aaron's was to bring unity. Aaron's death is this ability to heal, the final healing that we've had for the last 2,000 years, and to bring Jews together. Yes, there's lots of reasons. We don't all agree with everything and so forth, but the bond, the blood, the connection, the love, the feeling for each other. We're family, and family fight. Yeah, we fight. But, at the end, it's like there's glue between us. We've been through the same thing. We went through the same craziness. We were raised in the same family. We saw the same family habits and stuff like that. We were part of a family. And so this is really the appropriate time, as the Rebbe said, that we fight the cure. If the reason for the destruction of the temple and our exile was the disharmony and the disunity of the Jewish people, we can do something to bring it back together again. So I thought I would say that as we go into the 9 days. And then I would ask my wife to come and improve on my the words that I've given.
Close the door so there won't be a echo.
Should I unmute anybody or just leave it, let them say that?
Sorry wants to
You'll
say
move this
something.
one.
Sorry, wants to be unmuted. Okay, 1 minute. I'm coming to unmute. Okay, coming to unmute.
Thank you, Yaskel Shimon.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to unmute. Okay. Oh, sorry. Now, wait. Unmute yourself, darling. Okay.
I did.
Okay, good.
I wanted to tell him how fantastic everything he said was, but he's gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
You know what? I'll tell him. I'm his.
It was so nice. I
but
didn't
he's-
even really know that it was Aaron's
Thank you.
website.
Can I
And-
stay for a minute when he finishes so we can thank him?
Okay, yeah.
I think
I'll ask
that
him to
he-
come back.
Maybe.
I'll
Yeah,
ask him
that
to
was
come back.
particularly beautiful. I mean, every Monday has been
Yeah.
fabulous, but that was really something spectacular and special.
You know, he can hear you. He's fixing plugging.
Yeah, it was
He's
amazing.
fixing plugging.
Nice job, you had to send
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
thank you so
So
much.
he heard you. He heard you.
That was very
He
special.
was just.
You're
fixing-
welcome.
Okay.
Okay, good. So
Good.
anyway,
So Rabbi Jacobson's mother wasn't really Lubavitch from where she came from. She was from this place in Georgia, right?
no, it doesn't mean that a person's not Lubavitch. It means that that's where they lived. There were Chabadniks all over. I don't know about.
No. So was she Chabadnik before she came to Crown Heights? That's what I'm asking.
We have to find out. I know from his father's side, they go back, because we know that his grandfather, Yaskel Shimon told you about his Rabbi Yossi Jacobson's
Mother.
Rabbi Yossi Jacobson's father's father, no, his father's father, in other words, Rabbi Jacobson's grandfather was part of an incredible group of 10 Jews, 10 men in Russia, who joined with the Frierdiker Rebbe. The previous Rebbe was one of them, and he took 9 other men, and they made a pact to do whatever they could, including giving up their lives, in order to save Judaism in Russia. Because kids should grow up knowing that they're a Jew, knowing what it means to be a Jew, and Judaism should not be forgotten from the millions of Jews who were in the Soviet Union. And 9 of them, or 8 of them, I forgot how many, did lose their lives. So anyway, I don't think his grandfather did. I think his grandfather survived, and the Frierdiker Rebbe survived. So anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. So
Shalamis, may I ask you a very quick question about that? Which is, we're living in a time when so many Jewish people are not acknowledging their Judaism and are not, identifying or observing or whatever. They're distancing from it. Do you know the reason for that? Why that? And is there anything you can say about that or comment on it?
Well, we'll talk about it actually maybe in my talk, but it was predicted, right? That it was, I'm actually going to address it in my talk, okay?
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay, good.
Sure.
So thank you everybody for coming. And I have a little bit of a structure. First, I want to remind you that we have recorder off time. Emily's probably fed up being my timer. You want to be my timer again, Emily?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So tell me at it's now. I have 7:35. So tell me in 15 minutes. That's very short for me. Tell me in 15 minutes. Tell me in 18 minutes that I have 5 minutes to go. Okay. So set your timer for 18 minutes. Okay. Good. No. Yeah. And then I'll have 23 minutes. Okay. Good. So so first I always like to say what we're doing here, and the main thrust of what we're talking, at least in my half of the stuff, the main thrust of what we're talking about is that, number one, we're in an extraordinarily special time. And our souls were handpicked to be in this time. What we do is critically important. We're not buffeted about by events. What we do determines so much of what's going to happen. And Hashem gave us tools to survive this incredible time. One tool is Torah, which predicted everything that's happening and happened. Another tool is mitzvahs, which a favorite rabbi of mine used to say, mitzvahs are magic. They not only do they transform you personally, but they transform the world. And he gave us Mashiach, and he gave us the Rebbe, who told us so much about our time, and gave us, in the talks throughout the time, since 1951, in 40 years of talks, the Rebbe prepared us for this time, but particularly in the last 11 months before he had a stroke. Incredible instructions for our time. It's like a guidebook to our time right now. And the fourth main point that I like to make each time is that our being here tonight, our learning these things helps speed the redemption, because Rebbe said one of the principal ways to bring the redemption is to learn about it. To speed the redemption is to learn about it. So, okay, good. So then I want to go very briefly. I want to review what we did last week. Last week we talked a little bit about, last week we talked about, why do we need to know about Mashiach? Why doesn't Hashem just bring him? Why do we have to know about it? And we remember, we talked last week about how that's not good enough, because Mashiach is a king, and a king must be accepted by the people. And to be accepted by the Jewish people is no mean trick. Jews are extremely stubborn and extremely hard to convince. And as I told you before, Hashem prepared the Jewish people for 425 years before Moses came. And he needed all 425 years of preparation. And even after 425 years of preparation of every generation saying we're going to be in slavery in a foreign country, and then a big rabbi is going to come, or a big person is going to come, a big Jew is going to come and take us out. Be ready. And we even knew the password that Moses was going to say. And with all that preparation, the Jews gave Moses such a hard time. It was unbelievable. And with all that, 80% of the Jewish people chose not to leave Egypt with Moses, even after seeing the 10 plagues. So the Jews are a tough cookie. We have to be prepared. And so when we learn about Mashiach, we are preparing the world. And okay, good. So that was last week. This week, I would like to talk a little bit about who is Hashem, and why can't Hashem just bring Mashiach as a fait accompli, you know? And so the first point that I'd like to make is that Hashem organized the system. He organized the world so that he is completely dependent on us. That's how he made the system. And he's completely dependent on us, not only for us to bring our redemption, but for us to bring his, or you want to say her, whatever, Hashem's redemption. Hashem is not only put the keys to the redemption in our hands, but he put the keys to his own redemption, or her own redemption, however you want to refer to Hashem, in our hands. And there's a prophecy in the Torah. It's in the book of Devarim. And it says, "V'shav Hashem Elokecha es shavuscha," and it's exactly what Molly was talking about. Molly was the Torah. Here's what the Torah predicted. The Torah said, the Torah was written. It was given to us, written down and given to us in the year 2000, in the Jewish year 2448. That is something like that's 3,332 years ago. That was before the Jewish people even got to Israel. There was Abraham and Sarah and Yitzhak and Yaakov, and then there were just a few people. And then they went down to Egypt, and in Egypt we became a nation. And then when we left Egypt, we got the Torah at Har Sinai. And the Torah at Har Sinai, before the Jewish people as a nation even set foot in Israel, the Torah said, number one, you're going to go to Israel, you're going to have a Beis Hamikdash, you're going to live there, it's going to be marvelous, but then you're going to grow fat and lazy, and you're going to kick away Torah and mitzvos. You're going to stop keeping the Torah. And then Hashem said, and I'm going to allow, you can't, Israel itself is holy. And if you don't keep the Torah and mitzvahs, eventually the Jewish people get thrown out of Israel. And he said, Hashem said in the Torah, that's what's going to happen. You're going to be scattered across the world, and you are going to remain. Remember, this was written when the Jews were barely a people. We had just become a people. And Hashem said, and he's predicting what's going to happen over the next 3,000 years. 3,000 years. You're always going to stay small in number. You're never going to be accepted by people. You're going to try so hard, and you're never going to be accepted. You're going to try and copy the ways of the non-Jewish nations around you. It's not going to work for you. And Hashem said, and there's going to come a time when you realize this, and you're going to return to the ways of your fathers. Your fathers and mothers. You're going to return to the ways of the Torah, and the children, in many cases, will be leading the parents, which is totally what's happening in our generation. There are many people many people who never knew about Torah and mitzvahs, and they became religious, and their parents are finding out about Judaism from their children. So anyway. And Hashem says at that point, the sentence that I just said, "V'shav Hashem Elokecha es shavuscha," and it's often translated, and it is a valid translation. It's often translated as Hashem will bring back He's going to bring you back to Israel. He's going to bring back your returnees. But if you look at it very carefully, grammatically, it doesn't really say that. Grammatically, it says, He will return with your returnees. And the sages explain that God himself is in exile, and in a very, very, very painful exile. As long as the Jewish people are not in Israel and we're not living with Torah and mitzvahs, it's very painful for Hashem. Can you imagine having millions of children and they don't even know about you? It's very painful when a child doesn't acknowledge you, but imagine having millions of children who don't even know about you, don't know that you put them in this world, don't know that you gave them their soul, don't know anything about you, and profess not to care. So it's very, very painful to Hashem, but what can he do? He gave the keys to us. He gave us the keys to redeeming him and to redeeming and to redeeming us ourselves. So anyway, and it turns out one last little fact. It turns out that what we do is more powerful than what Hashem does. If you remember, God gave us the luchos, the first set of 10 tablets, and he did it with tremendous. It was totally from him, with tremendous fanfare. The mountain was on fire. The mountain was shaking. There was thunder, lightning. There was a loud sound of a shofar. It was the most amazing sound and light show that ever was. And the Jewish people were amazed, and we accepted the Torah. And how long did that last? It lasted 40 days. And then, Moshe came down with the tablets themselves, and he saw the Jewish people dancing around a golden calf, and he threw down the tablets and smashed them. And then the Jewish people did tshuva. The Jewish people said, what did we do? We're crazy. And they came back to Hashem, and we got the second set of tablets, the second set of tablets, and we got it through our own teshuvah, through our remembering who's most important to us, that we owe everything to Hashem. And those luchos, how long have they lasted? They still exist. They still exist. We got them 300 years ago, more than that. And they're hidden away in secret tunnels under the Beis Hamikdash. And we still have them. So, and they're going to last forever, because what we do, what Hashem does may be more spectacular, but what we do, what we accomplish with our own sweat and tears is more enduring. So I'm going to tell you, so the main point that I'm saying tonight is that, sometimes we feel like, we feel helpless. We feel like cogs in a system. We feel like we have no power. But the truth is that that it's a symbiotic relationship, that what we do affects Hashem deeply and affects the world deeply. We have no idea of the power that we have, and we have to use that power wisely. And I'm going to tell you a little story now. It's a story about COVID, about the coronavirus, and anyway, it's like I have many. I love listening to classes on the telephone when I'm in the kitchen and making food. I love doing it. And I have one line that I listen to, and I sometimes run out of stories on it, because I've heard a lot of the stuff. And so I go to a different telephone line. This telephone line, it has personal stories by women. Or not really by women. Yeah, it turns out it's all by women. I don't know why. And maybe women like to tell their own stories. And I just listened at random to the most recent class. And it was a lady. Sometimes they don't give their names. You can tell she's not a polished speaker. This is a true life story. And she's a woman who lives in Israel, but you can tell from the way she speaks that she must be a Brooklyn girl. This woman, you can hear the Brooklyn accent very clear. And she's very simple in the way she speaks. And she was saying that she lives in Israel, and she has a large family. She has kids, she has married children, she has a husband, she has, the married kids have grandchildren, she has a bunch of single kids too. And a week before Pesach this year, she and her husband were discussing, well, what should we do for Pesach? There's already the coronavirus. And her husband said, I think in light of the coronavirus, all the married kids should make their own seders. They shouldn't come here. We should just have the single kids. And she said, no, I don't think that's right. The married kids are all young. They have, they're starting their families. It's hard for them. Let them come here like they always do. Little did they know that nothing like that was going to happen with him. He got sick a few days later, And he went to urgent care. After urgent care, they said, this guy's really sick. He's going to the hospital in an ambulance. And she had just been talking to her son a few days before that. And her son lives in Borough Park, married son. And on the Shabbos before this, he took a chair and he sat outside one of the local hospitals. I think it was Maimonides Hospital. And he said, and he watched as people were, families were, people were being brought in on an ambulance, and families were not allowed to go in, of course, with them. And they weren't allowed, and they kept trying to get information outside the hospital, and there was no information. They could get nothing. They couldn't find anything out about the relative. And she said her son he sat there with a holy book. He was saying Tillim, and he was crying because it was so painful to watch these, you're sending your dearly beloved relatives off into a black hole with no information in crisis. So anyway, she said that's exactly what happened to her. Her husband went into the hospital, and that's it. You're not allowed to follow thank God for cell phones. So she called him in the hospital. She tried to send him some food for Shabbos, but he apparently was so weak that he couldn't even bend down to get it. And then on Saturday night, she spoke to him for a couple seconds, and that was it. And then the neighbor from the other bed called her, and he said he's okay, he's just very weak. And she said, oh, give me your number. Do you mind giving me your number in case I can't reach him? So he was very nice. He gave her the number. Anyway, Sunday she called, and there was no answer on his phone whatsoever. Nothing. Finally, she called the neighbor, and the neighbor said, I don't know what it is, but on Saturday night, something happened to your husband. They took him to ICU, and I haven't seen him since. And so, can you imagine? They didn't even call the wife to tell her your husband's now in ICU. She doesn't know anything, and she can't find out anything. And finally, she gets some information. A doctor calls her, and she said he was speaking in Hebrew. She's from America. She speaks Hebrew pretty well, but medical terminology she doesn't quite get completely. And she said it's a blessing that she didn't understand exactly what he was saying. It was a blessing. And she said God calculates to the tiniest fraction the amount of pain a person is supposed to get. And he knew, for some reason, I'm not supposed to get that extra piece of pain that I would have had having heard what he was telling me. I didn't understand. So anyway, her husband was in ICU. Apparently, this part she knew. This part she was told that all his systems shut down. His lungs were completely not working anymore. His kidneys were not working. All his systems were not working. And he was, and that was the situation. And each day she called back, and he was in a Sunday, Monday, he was in an awful situation. And she said to the doctor, do people ever get better? Wait, I have to go faster. Do people ever get better from this? And he said, Geveret, I don't think you understand how serious this is. And then on Tuesday, she said, they said to her, okay, he didn't get any worse today, but he didn't get any better today, but he didn't get any worse. And she said, really? That's great. He didn't get any worse. That means this is good. And she got off the phone and she called all her family and she said, we're saying Nishmas. Now, if any of you know the Saturday morning liturgy, it comes right after the Song of the Sea. And it says, it's basically in English it's thank you so much. If I had wings like an eagle, and if my feet were as swift as a deer, and my this and this, I could never thank you for your kindness is enough. And that is simply they did that because he didn't get worse that day. And she said that and remember, his kidneys are not functioning, his lung is not functioning, nothing is functioning, everything is totally collapsed. And she said she took it as a good sign. Now on Wednesday, and she said, and from that point on, she wasn't worrying anymore. On Wednesday, he got a tiny bit better. The doctor said, it's nothing. a millimeter of a millimeter of a millimeter. It's a tiny nothing. She said, doctor, I don't care. I'm taking that tiny nothing and I'm living with it. And they divided up the Tillim, and everybody was saying prayers for him. And then on okay, that night, Wednesday, is Pesach. She's an Orthodox Jew. She has to make Pesach. She has to make Pesach. This part really kills me. She has to make Pesach. And she says to herself, her husband, there's nothing functioning in her husband. And she says to herself, you know what? She remembers that 5.5 years earlier, she got a horrible phone call. And on this horrible phone call, she heard that one of her unmarried sons was killed instantly in a tragic car accident. And when she was on the phone, she knew there and then, she said, how I react to this, I am the mother. How I react to this is going to be how everybody reacts to this. I have to be strong. And she said, okay, good. And thank you. She said the exact same thing now. She said, how I react to this is a terrible matzav. It's a terrible situation, but how I react to this is going to be how everybody reacts. And so she said, I'm giving my kids a happy Yontif. That day, can you imagine, it's Pesach? She must have been cleaning all along. This is crazy. Her husband is in ICU and nothing is functioning. And she cooked and baked like any other Pesach. This is Erev Pesach. And she said she had a calm Erev Pesach. Nobody has a calm Erev Pesach. People who have everything going for them, have 3 maids helping them, and everything else do not have a calm Erev Pesach. This woman, she cooked and baked, and she had a calm Erev Pesach. Not only that, her daughter, one of her married daughters, had given birth the night before. And so she made Seder food. She made Seder food for her unmarried kids. The married kids were making their own Seders. She made food for herself and all her unmarried kids. She made Pesach. She made food for the married daughter who just gave birth and came home just in time for Pesach. She made her the Seder plate and all that other stuff. And her son, one of her unmarried sons, led the Seder. It was beautiful. Some grandchildren were there, and they played and they fought just like kids play and fight on any holiday. And she said we had a perfectly normal holiday. Pesach in Israel is 1 day, not 2 days. And that night, she found out that there had been an improvement, and then after that, slowly, he got better every day. I think he got better because of this incredible woman. And I forgot to tell you, all day Erev Yontiv, as she was cooking, all day Wednesday, she was saying, "Tracht git wird sein good." Think good and it will be good. The Rebbe said to do that all the time. If you're in trouble, think good and it will be good. It's incredibly powerful spiritually. And she kept saying, Yeshias Hashem keherifai, and the Yeshua of Hashem, the salvation of Hashem comes in the blink of an eye. Don't be depressed. It comes in a blink of an eye. And anyway, so he got better and better. Eventually he got released from the hospital. He went to rehab, and eventually he got home. And not until he was home or in rehab did she hear the true story of what happened. The true story of what happened is that Saturday night, her husband died. That Saturday night, when he was rushed to ICU, his heart stopped. He died. And the doctor worked on him for an hour, giving him whatever they do, all that stuff. He worked on this dead person for an hour. And afterwards, after an hour, he got a tiny heartbeat. And when this guy got totally better, he said to the doctor, "Why did you work on me for an hour? Nobody works on somebody whose heart is stopped for an hour. They work for half an hour, if the person is lucky. Or in an extraordinary situation, maybe once in a billion years, they work for 45 minutes, but nobody works on somebody for an hour. Why did you work on me for an hour?" And he said, "Because you know how you died." He said, on that Saturday night, the guy was still okay. He asked for a glass of water. He took a sip of water. He asked for a glass of water. He said the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyah b'dvaro. Thank you, Hashem, that everything that comes to be comes by your word. And he took a sip, and that was it. His neshama left him. And the doctor said, that's exactly the way tzaddikim pass away. In fact, many Lubavitcher Rebbe's and their wives passed away just like that. On Saturday night, they asked for a drink, made a bracha, took a sip, and whoosh, it's apparently a very sweet and easy way to go. And this doctor said, he's a tzaddik. I've got to work on him. He's a tzaddik. He's a saint. I've got to work on him. And anyway, the man said he remembers perfectly what happened to him in heaven. He went up to heaven. And when your soul leaves your body, the first thing that happens, and so many people say this who had post-life experiences, the first thing that happens is that your relatives who passed away before you come greet you, and they escort you into heaven. And that's what happened. He couldn't see them, but he felt his son who had passed away and his parents with him. And when he got to heaven, everybody says this too, there's so many reports of this. There's like a tribunal of holy people sitting there, and they're going to decide what happens to you, where you go, what part of heaven, whatever. And he remembers thinking, this is fantastic. I've never felt this good in my life. This is awesome. I love it. I hope his wife wasn't offended, but he said, I have no reason to go back. It is so good here. Wow. I have no reason to go back. And then as he's feeling all these things and thinking all these things, he hears a bas kol. A bas kol is a heavenly voice. It is like an echo in heaven. He hears a bas kol, and it's like an announcement. And he hears the bas kol, and the bas kol says, whoever comes to Jerusalem, to Yerushalayim, in the next 2 hours, it will be considered as if he cried for the pain of the Shekhinah. That means whoever comes to heaven in the next few hours, it will be as if he cried over the pain of Hashem, of the pain of Hashem's Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah, Hashem has many parts to him. He's not male, he's not female. There's the part HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's sort of like male, and then there's Shekhinah. Shekhinah is like the mother, the female part of Hashem. And the female part of Hashem is always with us. The female part of Hashem is like a mother. A mother never leaves her kids when they're in trouble, never leaves her kids. And the Shekhinah is in terrible pain because she's with us in exile. She's with us through all our pain. And he hears this voice, and he said, I want to cry for the pain of the Shekhinah. I want it to be considered as if I cried for the pain of the Shekhinah. Oh, forget this heaven, send me down. And the next thing, he's back in his body. So my point in telling this story is that, number one, anything you can do to keep up your faith, like this woman, it produces remarkable results. It's so holy. It's so holy to trust in Hashem. It's just so holy. But the second thing is, it's a symbiotic relationship with Hashem. It's we affect Hashem and Hashem affects us. And what we do is huge. What we do is absolutely huge. So anyway, okay. So that's what I wanted to say for today. I want to remind you that candle lighting for this week, if you can do it, it's an enormously holy thing. It's 7:54, and it's a hotline to heaven. So that's our time. That's, you can open your mouth anytime. It's a hotline to heaven, but especially at candle lighting. And I want to tell you that the technique that I taught you last week, that I didn't teach you, the Rebbe teaches us, and I heard about it and I told you about it. It's if you can do an amazing thing for calm, an amazing thing for, the Rebbe said, if you want to live Mashiach now, a way to live Mashiach now is to do everything you do with total focus, to use your thought, your speech, and your deed to be exactly where you are and nowhere else. And last week when I was having many crises, on the afternoon of this class, I did it for a small period of time, and I got a week's worth of calm out of it. I'm telling you, it was amazing. So, and today I also did it. It's just very, very, very powerful. Pretend nothing else exists in the world. If you're preparing a class, or if you're doing whatever you're doing, you're talking to somebody, be there and nowhere else. And it's an amazing thing. So does anybody want to say something? You can unmute yourself. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Just want to say I'm so grateful. I love seeing everyone's face. I hope at some point we're all able to do the horror together and hold hands, and it's just a blessing. But I have to run to my mom's. So
Okay,
good
good.
night, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, Amy.
I wanted to say something to Molly because, I think your point about how folks have gone away from Judaism or gone away from religion in general, and I've heard this idea about how the kids are bringing the parents back, and we like it when we see evidence of that. The one thing I would say, and it's a very small number of noticings, but I've noticed at least 2 people in my congregation. And it's been interesting. Like, I'm not someone who is fairly secular. I'm not someone who tends to go to Friday night services, although I absolutely love them. I never go, but I love them. It was always something that when I have the opportunity to go, I absolutely love it. And I've always thought, well, when I don't have kids in the house, this will be something I'll do on Friday nights because I just adore it so. But since this whole thing began, for 19 weeks, maybe 20, I've gone to services every single week over Zoom. They've done it over Zoom. And literally close to 1,000 to 2,000 people have been doing the same. And I can tell you, because when I have gone to Friday night services, there hasn't been 2,000 people there, but there has been a resurgence. And I'm not the only one. I talked to friends of mine, and they also are taking advantage of, since we're all at home, doing things that they hadn't done. So I have a friend in New Jersey, my friend Jody, and she has been making challah. That the very first time the lockdown happened, she made challah for Friday night and lit candles, and she has done that for 19 weeks straight without a miss. Even when she had carpal tunnel syndrome one week and had surgery on the Thursday, her husband made the challah for her, on Friday. And I feel like that's a very small number, but and then I look at myself. I'm the most one of the most secular Jew clearly of us 7 or 8 or 9.
I don't know if that's true, Amy.
Well, it could be.
I don't know that that's true.
But I will tell you, I've managed to show up here. How many? Is this number 17?
Yes.
17 weeks in a row.
Yes.
And that kind of shows me that, that like maybe this idea that people find a way to come back. If I know myself and I know Jody and I see what's happening at the synagogue, I can't possibly be the only one. So yes, we're always looking for those little evidences. And I just wanted to say, yeah, I hear you because I see it too. But then I see these little sparks coming from different places. And I don't know, maybe it means a little something. So that was just my thought, and maybe it's useful. And if you end up, anyone, seeing evidence of somebody who got turned on or turned around a little, I'd love to hear it too,
Yes.
So, yeah.
I also want to say
Lovely.
that when people, very beautiful, Amy, when
Thank
these
you.
people, I think that, so first of all, everybody has a Jewish neshama, and everybody has a key to that Jewish neshama. And I think that what so many of these people are all about is that they need something genuine. It can't be because somebody else did it. It can't be because other people are doing it. It has to be genuine. And sometimes they break everything. They just break everything down. But what they're really looking for is something very genuine. And when they find it, it's theirs. And it's forever. So that's been the case in many, many, many situations. They don't, there are many, many people now. It didn't happen so much, but there have been a lot of people who have left Orthodoxy. Kids, teenagers, and when they come back, they're unbelievable because they had it and then they rediscovered it on their own. Nobody wants in this generation. None of them want something handed to them on a silver platter. So anyway.
Nice class tonight.
Davida Gabor, I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
I think
Oh, it was my microphone. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
First of all, I wanted to acknowledge Molly because I didn't get a chance to say hi to you last time.
I thought that was you, but I
It's
was
me.
seeing a different name.
Yeah,
And I said-
that's my English name. Yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you. How are you,
too.
Davida
Good,
Gabor?
thank God. Thank God.
Oh, good. Baruch Hashem. I'm so happy you're in Israel.
Me too. But I wanted to say hi and make sure that I connected with you, and also Shalom Shehodas.
So
I want to
sweet.
say
Thank
that
you.
this is such a it's so curated there's definitely hashgacha in the lessons that you're giving, because they're so curated that they reach beyond the story themselves. You know, I mean, like the story that you just told is incredible on its own, but the inner reaches that each one of us is probably experiencing individually on a very individual level, and it happens again and again and again. So I just want to say that whatever, you know, that the teaching is definitely carrying something very powerful with it. And I want to thank you for creating this space for us.
Thank you. It's like, you know, you know, yeah.
And it's
I
3
think we
o'clock
need
in the
this
morning,
space.
isn't it?
I need this space. Everybody needs this
It
space.
is. It's 3
Like,
o'clock in the morning for you, right?
it's crazy. She's crazy.
Would
She's
you
not
set your alarm
so-
clock just to wake up?
Actually, I didn't go to sleep yet,
Did-
which is
I
why
have-
you don't see me every week, but I try.
He stays up for us. I love that.
I have 3 things to say, if I can say them. One, I
Please,
want to
go
throw
ahead.
you a kiss, Davida Gabor. Mwah. A big hug. The other is that somebody said to me that sometimes when you have, you know, you have a relationship that's struggling in some way, they said touch things lightly with that person. You know, don't be overly, you know, if it's a difficult person or something like that, don't be overly, you know, assertive in trying to communicate or whatever. And I was thinking that what you're doing, Shalamis and Yechezkel Shimon, with these classes is you're touching everyone lightly with these beautiful stories, and that have so much meaning and relate to Torah and everything, as well as the virus and the world and what we all have as tools to go to get through it and to bring comfort, excuse me, and confidence. And so I think by touching everyone lightly, you're impressing everybody in their own way, in a way. You know, nobody's being pushed into anything or forced into anything, but within what you're both teaching and telling and expressing, I think people are receiving things that resonate with them and help them. And the other thing I was going to say, I just forgot. Oh, I know, I wanted to say, when I was in Israel many years ago and I went into the Sinai desert before it was given back to Egypt, I didn't know, has anyone been to the Sinai or been to Mount Sinai? Have you been there, Shalamis? You have. Do you remember that I think there was a place near Mount where you could see off in the distance a white, it looked like a white gravestone or something on a hill. And somebody said it was Aaron's. That's where Aharon was buried. And I don't know if that's true or not. You know,
First, they don't even know. They don't even know if that's really Har Sinai, right?
They don't.
They don't know. The tour people, they don't know that it's Har Sinai. Yeah.
Actually,
Oh, they don't. Wasn't
They
it
don't
near the? It's not near the monastery.
Yeah, the whole thing. The monastery, they have a monastery on top, the whole thing, but
Mm.
they don't know, right? They don't know. And Aaron is buried on someplace called Har HaHar, and Moshe is buried on Har Nevo, and Hashem buried Moshe. Can you imagine? Hashem, both of them
Really?
died. Miriam also. They all died with a kiss. They all died with a kiss. They all died with a kiss of Hashem. Isn't that incredible? It's an incredible way to go.
It is
And,
incredible, but you actually do see a white. You know, did you remember seeing that when you were there? I don't know.
I remember the monastery. I don't remember.
I remember,
It's a long
and the
time ago.
reason I'm
Yeah.
mentioning it is because if that really was where Aaron was buried, it would be interesting that we, of everyone, Moshe and everybody, that would be the only person, the one that Yechezkel Shimon is talking about.
That is interesting. Yeah.
So that's why I was making that
Yeah.
correlation.
Yes. Very interesting.
Oh.
First of all, I want you guys also to share with me your strategies your strategies for trust and calm. And I
We
think
come here, Shalom Shehudis.
What?
We come here. That's the strategy. The strategy is
lady.
on Monday nights.
It's one of them.
Hi.
Oh, bye, Claudine.
Bye. It's getting
Bye,
late
Claudine.
for me.